Hello, I'm Susan Raff, and thank you for joining us for this WFSB Plus exclusive. Today marks a significant day in Connecticut history. It was on this day 20 years ago, during the morning rush hour, that a dump truck lost control coming down Avon Mountain and slammed into dozens of cars. A total of 5 people died as a result of that crash and dozens injured. And today you'll hear from some of the survivors and a daughter who lost her dad. But first, what exactly happened that day and how lives have been changed forever.
I can't ever come anywhere near this without thinking of it.
Corinne Rebellard still feels uneasy at the base of Avon Mountain. On the day of the crash, she was on a bus going to work and was reading a book.
I glanced up and then got thrown to the floor.
She and other passengers were trapped.
But he couldn't go anywhere because Chris Stotler's car was crushed up against the bus. But the rear tires were spinning, so we couldn't go out the back door.
Stotler was waiting at a light at this intersection along with several other cars when a dump truck came flying down the mountain on Route 44 in Avon. His car was hit and he was killed. He was the father of 5 young girls. Also killed that day, Barbara Bongiovanni, Maureen Edlund, and the truck driver, Rahim Nafi.
The bus driver was thrown onto the floor. His foot was stuck on the gas pedal.
Frank Wan, the bus driver, miraculously survived the crash, but his injuries were severe, and his children say he was never the same.
He was not Frank. He was like a child. We had to teach him how to walk. We had to teach him how to talk. We had to teach him how to eat.
Ramona says her father had a broken neck, collapsed lung, and was paralyzed on his left side. Frank had been a bus driver for more than 30 years and loved his job.
My dad was a good bus driver. Great bus driver, great father.
Less than 3 years after the crash, Ramona and Michael's father died.
I cannot go to the scene.
Why not?
I just picture that my dad in that bus covered with blood, dirt, rocks, trying to get out.
And what these families would endure after the crash would cause further suffering. David Wilcox, the owner of the truck, the family say not only did he not show any remorse, but he had canceled his liability insurance and then tried to reinstate it just moments after the crash. Ultimately, there was no insurance money for these families.
Accidents happen. Just say, hey, I screwed up. I'm wrong. I know I'm wrong. What can I do? I'm sorry.
I was going to work, so I was commuting from my home in Canton and headed towards Hartford. Next thing I knew, I was in the emergency room. People on both sides of me and behind me were killed.
The person who you just heard from is Mark Robinson. Mark is a survivor of that crash, and he's joining us today along with another survivor, Corinne Rebellard, and also Ramona Wan, whose father was driving the bus that day, and he was severely injured and died as a result of his injuries. And I think it's very obvious, meeting you and talking to you, that 20 years later, this is still very, very painful.
Yes.
It is. Corinne, you were on that bus that day like so many other people going to work. Tell us what that day was like during that crash.
It was horrifying. Something I had never come close to seeing before or since. I can't go over that way without thinking of it. Anytime I see a dump truck that size on the road, that's what I think of, and meeting her today, so painful.
I think you mentioned you were reading a book that day on your way to work, and the jolt of the crash forced you to the ground.
Threw me out of my seat onto the floor, yeah.
When was it that you realized that this was a very serious crash?
When I was able to get back up into my seat. I mean, I heard all the dirt and gravel hitting the bus and the crashes, and looked out the window, and I was horrified by what I saw. It was like a scene from a war zone. It was horrifying.
You knew the bus driver, Frank Wan.
Yes, he was a sweet, sweet fellow.
And you saw that he had been seriously hurt.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Yes. He was crushed. The front of the bus was crushed. He was thrown out of his seat into the stairwell of the bus. His foot was stuck on the gas pedal, and
It was a very, very difficult day. You were trapped
it
on
was.
that bus. And Ramon, I know this is very painful for you. And one of the things that I didn't know was that the two of you had really not met until just moments ago we started taping or live streaming this show.
It's the first time I've seen her.
And it really, it's hard, isn't it, Ramona?
It is very hard, but I'm glad I got to meet her.
Yeah.
To hear about my dad. And I remember the day that my dad woke up. The first thing he asked us was how was his passengers when he realized where he was. Did any of them get hurt? Dad, you were the only one on the bus that got hurt. Everybody tried to help you. I'm just letting you know that they were there for you, Dad. And I appreciate it. I really do.
Yeah, and he survived that day, but he was not the same from those injuries, right? I think you said he had a broken neck and
Collapsed
paralyzed, right? It's
Paralyzed on the left side, the nerves never came back.
very heartbreaking. Joining us remotely is Mark Robinson, who wrote a book on this tragedy. It's called Smoke, Fire, and Angels. He is a survivor of that crash. Mark was in a car, but it changed his life forever, didn't it, Mark?
Yeah, it's haunting to be involved in such a horrible incident and come so close to losing my life and realizing that people who were in cars all around me did lose their life. It's haunting, and yeah, so that's obviously had a profound effect on me.
Right, I think when we met last week, you told me you had very little memory, if any, of the crash. Sometimes trauma is like that. One of the things that you said that struck you, though, in the aftermath of the crash was the tons of volunteers and first responders who just showed up that day and really helped people get out of their vehicles.
Yeah, it's amazing. That's a big part of the story. I mean, it's easy to focus on the bad guy, Wilcox, but roughly it's estimated 300 people showed up: firemen, police, EMTs, passersby, and dropped everything to help us. I mean, these are total strangers, and they, in many cases, were putting themselves in harm's way to help us. And it's really, it's an amazing thing. So, there's obviously a negative side, but I also want to remember that people like Todd Myers and Tim Vibbert and LaShawn Hooks, these are people who just who did tremendously courageous and kind things that day, and that's the story of many of the responders who were there, and that's a big part of the story.
What made you want to write a book on this tragedy?
Well, as you said, I don't have any memory of the crash. I woke up in the hospital and literally said what happened. So I don't remember any of it. And when I started to learn what had gone on, I started my career as a newspaper reporter, so I guess some of that kicked in. I mean, this is, it's this incredible story on so many levels. So, but I think the overwhelming thing that drove me was, I don't know if I had survivor's guilt, but I'm so fortunate to have survived, and the people who did lose their lives were really good people, and the rescuers who tried to help and did help in so many amazing ways. I just wanted their stories to be told. And I couldn't do what the rescuers did. I mean, they pulled people from burning cars. LaShawn Hooks helped Dr. Kurtzman set someone's horribly broken arm. I mean, there were just incredible things going on. So I wanted to, I guess, shine a light on them. And that's what I could do. I could write about it. So that's what I decided I was going to go ahead and do.
One of the things that you learned and the survivors learned and the families learned was about David Wilcox, who was the owner of that truck and had canceled his insurance and then tried to reinstate it. And ultimately, he went to jail for that. But it meant that any money that could have gone to the families to help them was not there. Were you angry about that?
Of course, yeah. I was angry that he let his trucks that were not well cared for on the road. And that poor truck driver, his first day on the job, and
Lost his life.
he lost his life. And imagine what he was going through, coming down that mountain, losing control, trying to regain control.
Losing parts.
Oh,
Awful. And Mark, I understand that part of the proceeds or profits from your book are helping some of the families. You did that, I would imagine, as a result of the fact that, there was no money. You may have probably done that anyway, I assume.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, all the proceeds went to the families who lost loved ones. And, in addition to the horror of having to lose a loved one, because Wilcox canceled his liability insurance, that was another financial burden that people had to deal with. And it's just terrible because, you have to ask yourself, how did this very gruff, unscrupulous, irresponsible guy who had over 1,100 safety violations, how was he able to keep his trucks on the road until one of his trucks killed 5 people? It's amazing. How did that happen? Well, he had enablers. He had our state legislators who built in a loophole on an existing law that was intended to get uninsured motorists off the road. And they added a loophole to the law that basically said if any of us normal people dropped our liability insurance, the insurer would be required to notify the Department of Motor Vehicles. However, if you own a fleet of monster trucks, you're off the hook because our legislators gave the trucking industry a pass on this, so the law didn't apply to them. And I think it's near certain that given Wilcox's record, that he would have been driven out of business had that loophole not been put in. So our state legislators bear a great deal of responsibility for what happened that day.
Right, and they've made changes since then, unfortunately, a little too late for a lot of the families. I know, Ramona, you were at the trial. That was very difficult for you. No amount of money would bring your father back and change that. But I would imagine Mark's generosity of helping the families makes it a little bit easier.
Mark Robinson did a lot for my mom. He was there a lot for her. He would call me up and say, I need to get with you and your mom and come down wherever he was and meet with me. And we go to my mom's house and he'd try to open it and give her the card. And she'd be like, Mo, can you open this? And she always cried.
One of the things that I learned from a lot of the families is that, it's difficult during a trial to admit guilt, but it would have made a difference, do you think, if David Wilcox had apologized or showed any kind of remorse for the grief?
It might have helped a little bit, but I just have no sorry for him. If he had died that day, it would have made me happy. At sentences, I came out of the court saying they cuffed him, stuffed him, sent his ass.
Your father was still alive at the time of the trial? Or was it after?
I think Daddy had passed already.
Right. How did he feel about what had happened?
He had no morsel or hate towards Wilcox until my mother ended up having a heart attack and then ended up in the hospital. And I had to sit down with Mom and go through all the medicine so Daddy knew how to do it. And when it was time to put Daddy to bed, and it wasn't Mommy putting Daddy to bed, so it was, you don't know what you're doing. Where's my wife? I need my wife. You just go home and get my wife and bring her back to me, please.
So life had really changed and upside down. And here was a man who drove a bus for 30 years, loved his job,
loved his family, loved his passengers. He thought the world of his passengers. They were family to him.
When you go through that era, and I know you cannot go.
I cannot.
Why not?
It just brings back too many memories. I go as far as Bob's and Simsbury, and I have to turn around or stop there.
Corrine, you and I met at the site. And even then I could tell that it was a difficult time because 20 years has gone by, but it has not erased your memory.
Oh, no, never will. Never will. I even have a couple of friends who are familiar with the story, and they feel the same way anytime they go over there. they're reminded of it.
And it's not just you. It's not just the survivors and the families. I work with people. I know people who have told me that even just knowing that that crash happened there, they always think about it when they go through that intersection.
Yep.
It's really, it's tough.
Hurts.
My cousins,
Go ahead.
I believe it was sister-in-law or a friend of her sister-in-law, was a first responder on the scene. She came to Daddy's wake and with my cousin to introduce herself to me.
Jamie DePace, who was the fire chief at the time in Avon,
I remember
we
that one
spoke to
too.
him, and he said it was very traumatic for the first responders, and they had to provide counseling and other things because trying to get people out of those vehicles.
And you couldn't.
No. And I think, Mark, you had mentioned to me that this has really changed you in the way that you realize how precious life is, and you just never know what's going to happen to you when you leave your home.
Yeah, it's almost a cliche. We say that a lot. Be careful when you walk out the door. You never know if you're going to come home. Well, I think we say it so many times, but for those of us who went through this experience on 20 years ago, we know it's true. So you don't, to get hung up over silly little things in your personal relationships or whatever. I mean, I really try to invoke the spirit of the rescuers that day who gave of themselves. They were so generous and courageous and kind. And, I think that's a lesson for all of us to be, more forgiving, more kinder, cut ourselves some slack. You drive around and there's so many angry drivers on the road. There's all that road rage, and it's like, what are people don't realize how lucky they are to be alive. They should appreciate it. And when you go through an experience like this, I mean, I know I have days when I don't follow my own advice, but I think this experience overall has helped me has given me a lot of perspective and more of a sense of gratitude, and I really try to remember that every day.
Thank you, Mark. I think that's good advice for all of us. Mark's book, Smoke, Fire, and Angels, I understand you can get it on Amazon. And again, some of the proceeds do go to the families, especially those who are the most seriously impacted. And I just wanted to ask Corinne, because I know that one of the things that's also changed your life, and that is, just being a little more careful out there. I'm not sure that would have prevented what happened on Avon Mountain, but it has changed you that way, even every day when you drive.
Yes, yes. I've always been a pretty good driver, but I'm even more careful than I ever had been. But Mark's right. People are crazy on the road these days.
Right. So 20 years later, this has impacted you. I know that you had your 10th anniversary and at the site, and you met people. What do you want people to know, Ramona, about what happened and why it's important not to forget?
Just remember the people that did survive. I feel bad for the 4 little girls that lost their dad, but I understand they want to greet their way and not deal with it. It does get overwhelmed. I've been thinking lately that this might be my last year to deal with everything too. I might walk away. It's just that I love my dad, and I'll never forget this. I'll never forget him. I'll never forget Mark, the people that were involved in it. I just want to move on. I'll never forget that day. Never. My life was totally destroyed, changed, because I wasn't even in Connecticut. So that was in the...
Well, I want to thank you both. You want to add something, Corinne?
Willie Nelson is one of my favorite singers, songwriters, and he has a song, and I tell so many people about this song. And it's called Something You Get Through, and the lyric goes, "It's not something you get over, it's something you get through." Whether it's something like this or the loss of a loved one, and it's true. You don't get over it, you get through it.
Well, I want to thank you both for coming here and sharing your story and getting through this as best as you can. Mark, I want to thank you also. I think that what you've done by writing about this experience and allowing other people to share it and understand it better. And what you're doing in your way to help the families is really wonderful. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for having us on.
Thank you. Changes were made as a result of that crash. The road is safer today, and there are tougher laws on truck owners who fail to have insurance. Families tell us they are glad those changes have been made, but nothing can change what happened on that day on Avon Mountain. We want to thank you for watching today's live stream. Be sure to tune in on Eyewitness News tonight starting at 5 as we continue our coverage of the 20th anniversary of the Avon Mountain crash, and we'll tell you specifically what was done to make the road safer, and you'll also hear about the heroic efforts of first responders. I'm Susan Raff. We'll see you later on Channel 3 tonight. Thanks for watching.